Max, so what's the latest on Jordan Addison on your end? I mean, where do we kind of sit? No, he was visiting Austin. And beyond that, it just seems kind of like everybody's sort of curious what's next.
Yeah. Yesterday talked to some folks who suggested that there's been, confidence on the Texas side that they could get it done with him. It looks like he's now going to go take an official visit to USC. I wouldn't be totally surprised if Alabama got involved as well. So I don't know that means it's over for Texas if he's going to go out and take a visit to USC, but certainly that can't make you feel very comfortable that if he's going to go spend a weekend out in LA, and it's going to be a really interesting battle. Now, the fascinating thing with Jordan Addison is who does he help more? I think he probably helps USC more, and I'm not saying that he wouldn't be incredibly valuable to Texas, but I'm not sure he makes them a few wins better. I'm not sure he makes them a Big 12 title team, in my opinion, because I think you've still got, issues on the offensive line. I think you still are very improving at quarterback, and they've also added pieces at receiver this offseason. So I get wanting to pursue the best talent you can, but if he were to go there, I am curious how that would adjust the expectations for Texas. I'm not sure how much they should necessarily.
Yeah, he's obviously, it seems like as valuable. You've been doing this transfer portal thing from day one and prior to that, as far as the rankings and who's the best available. And he does seem to be a tremendous talent, no question about it. Max,
can he play defense though?
No.
I mean, that would be helpful if he could play defense for Texas.
Can he
because
block?
That's the thing that.
Yeah,
I know that.
Right.
Yeah, I know they've had.
I'm not knocking him. He's terrific. He's a first round player for sure. And if Texas, feels like that's that's something they can pull off, then I guess that would be a big deal to a lot of folks. But I think there's real questions about how you can build this offense that potentially has got all these studs, and maybe you can score 40 points a game, but I don't know. They might give up 38 points a game. It's going to be an interesting team if they just continue to sort of sell out on upgrading the offense.
Yeah, that's what's been interesting to me. I know they've had guys, like Marcus Washington jumped in the portal, and there's some other questions at wide receiver, but that's not a top concern for me for them. When you go and get a Jai Hall and you've got Worthy coming back and you bring in Billingsley at tight end, and yeah, I don't think that's the missing piece like you said. Sticking with the Longhorns for a moment, Max, Chris Del Conte had his comments about the Longhorn Network. You've made a few appearances on there over the years, haven't you?
I used to work for ESPN.
Yes. So your thoughts on the Longhorn Network and Del Conte's comments? I don't think it comes as much of a surprise given the SEC network, but just your thoughts on, the perhaps end of an era for UT athletics.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in the room, so I don't want to maybe necessarily take what Del Conte said out of context. If there's some other context to it that isn't conveyed on Twitter, that happens sometimes. But
right.
When I saw that, I was disappointed. I've worked with a lot of really good people in that office at LHN. Obviously, LHN, was built up as being one thing before it even launched, and as this, big super weapon that everyone should be afraid of, and that schools left the Big 12 over and all that, and that's not what it turned into. Part of that is because of Texas's failures in athletics. Part of that is just that. I mean. I think they do great work over there, and I understand why people don't have any love for the Longhorn Network. But when the day comes that Texas is going to the SEC, as Del Conte said, they're going to shut down LHN and get folded into the SEC Network. And you got to remember, there's a lot of hardworking people there in that office who are going to lose jobs or have to relocate or whatever, just because this big bet that Texas and ESPN made didn't work out. And that sucks for them. And I think you got to kind of remember the human element of that. As much as I'm sure you guys don't love LHN, there's some good folks over there who, to me, don't deserve that kind of commentary from Del Conte.
Well, and I got a feeling talking to Jeff Howe, who covers UT for 247, that he thinks that they might remain in some ways there as kind of a bureau.
It's going to be a satellite.
For the satellite bureau for parts of the conference west of the Mississippi. Now, he said no one told him that. He just kind of has heard a little bit that could be the case. So maybe it's not just completely everybody's done, and there might be some, hopefully not just remnants. That's not the right word, but at least some who are there that can cover LSU, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, A&M, and, of course, but not be associated with UT, because those schools aren't going to allow that to happen anyway.
Yeah, maybe so. I haven't talked to the folks I used to work with over there and asked what the future looks like there, and maybe there's some value to that. I mean, obviously, office space or a whole floor of an office in Austin, Texas, is not very cheap in terms of rent and stuff. So, you know, for him to say, you know, it's History Channel, to me suggests that they're sort of planning to fold up shop there. I guess we'll see what happens. Yeah, optimistically, yeah, it'd be great if they could sort of maintain that in some way. And it's fascinating. I mean, the legacy of Longhorn Network will be something that I'm sure people will write about someday because, like I said, it was built up to be this thing that everyone should fear, and that's really not what it was. Now, was there also, like, you know, it's a pretty incredible thing that happened and didn't really work out for ESPN, I wouldn't say. You know, was there an audience for a Big 12 network at the time? Should the Big 12 have set up a network like the Big 10 or the Pac-12 should have? Like, probably not in hindsight. I think probably the Big 12 ended up doing the right thing in terms of the third-tier rights. But, you know, it'd be interesting to see how people remember LHN as a thing that everyone was afraid of, and it's not really what it ever became.
Would be a hell of a 30 for 30.
They never got to show those high school games. Remember, that was the big brouhaha.
Yeah, Connor Brewer and Jonathan Gray were going to be on there back in the day. That's right. That was the threat.
Yep, and then A&M was gone pretty much months later, I think, after they talked about that, but that never got off the ground. I did want to ask you, Gary Bohannon to USF, Matt